This little thing that I'm holding in my hand was the very first camera I ever owned. This camera was a $60 piece of green plastic shaped like a carabiner that single-handedly got me hooked on filmmaking and to where I am today that is safe to say I took pretty much everywhere. Now this camera was called the Argus Bean because it was shaped like a bean and it had a little carabiner clip so you could clip it on to your belt or whatever you wanted. You could just bring it on adventures. It was super durable and I brought it pretty much everywhere. Like I said, it had no autofocus, no focus of any kind, just single focus, and it had a 5 megapixel sensor with a little screen on the back, some controls. But most importantly, it shot video at up to 480p, which resulted in some very, very crispy, high quality first films that I shot. And again, I really took advantage of the adventure style design of this camera, taking it on my first ever backpacking trip, taking it skiing, taking it to Washington, D.C. Anywhere I could take it, I took it and I shot videos and photos.
This is a great camera for camping, hiking, or anywhere that you want to have some adventurous fun.
Now a little bit of a side note here, but the history of the Argus camera company is actually really interesting. Basically, they started in the 1930s with film cameras and they created the C3 rangefinder, which turned out to be one of the greatest selling cameras in all of history. But eventually their company got bought and then they went out of business in the late 1960s, only to be revived in the early 2000s to produce 2 digital cameras meant for children called the Argus Bean and the Argus Bean Sprout, which won some awards apparently. But it's just crazy to me that they went out of business, came back to produce these cameras that got me started. So in a way, it's like I'm related to that original film era because my first camera was a digital camera produced by this company that was a mega company back in the film days. But whatever, let's get back to the important stuff. So honestly, I think it's safe to say that without getting that camera from my parents, I wouldn't be where I was today in terms of photography and videography. I mean, maybe I would have gotten another camera at some point and jumped into that, but I don't know why my parents got me this camera, but it's definitely one of the main reasons that I got so invested in this art form. Now I got this camera in like 2009, and at that time I was also really inspired by some of my older friends who were making films on their own, and I just thought it was so cool and I tried to replicate them in a way. So that camera was definitely helping in that time, but at the same time, if I hadn't had that camera, I don't think I would have started making films. Now I used the Argus Bean for about a year and a half and I had a lot of traumatic experiences in that time. Firstly, I accidentally formatted the card after an entire shoot, so I learned my lesson on that super early. And then secondly, one time I left it inside of a rental boot and completely lost the camera until they went and found it several days later, and both of those experiences were extremely traumatic and taught me a lot about caring for cameras and keeping track of your gear. So yeah, definitely some good memories attached to that camera. After about a year and a half with the Argus Bean, I upgraded to the Canon PowerShot A3100 IS, which I used for several years after that. And then for several years, I shot films on my iPod Touch before upgrading to my first DSLR, which was my Nikon D3200, before upgrading to the Lumix G7, and then finally, my Sony A7S III. So a long trajectory of cameras starting with the Argus Bean. Anyway, that's basically it. I just thought it'd be a kind of fun video to talk about the first camera I ever used and how I got into filmmaking initially and how far I've come in the past 12 years. Now unfortunately, at some point in the past, we gave away or sold my Argus Bean, so I no longer have that camera, but I did some digging on eBay and I was able to find the Argus Bean Sprout, which is a bit of a different camera than the one I had, but it's still available. So if you want to see it, leave a comment down below and maybe I'll buy that camera from eBay, make a video, make a film with that original camera that I used, and we'll see how it turns out. Maybe we'll make something decent with it, maybe not, but let me know if you want to see that down below. But that's it for today. Thank you as always for watching, and I will see you all next time.